Okay, so thank you very much for joining me in this podcast episode. And today I am very excited because I am joined by Fanny Snaith, the money coach expert. So first of all, Fanny, thank you so much for joining me. To talk about money and families. So a very, very warm welcome. What I'd love to do, Fanny, if it's okay with you, first of all, is just to do a little bit of intro, who you are and kind of how you got to be what you're doing now.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for inviting me along today, and it's lovely to be in the group. I am a mother myself, so but my girls are grown, well, 18 and 22, so I'm quite a long way down the road, not having to worry about them sleeping. I'm more worried about getting them up. Anyway, so I am a certified money coach. I'm also a cognitive hypnotherapist, and I work with people to heal their relationship with money should they be struggling to get their finances sorted out. Even if people are sort of sorting their money out, I think it's just really important this day and age to know that we've got to have money. We need to be able to get enough money in our bank accounts, enough money in our pensions, enough money to keep us comfortable until we pop our clogs off this mortal coil, right? And I think what tends to happen, well, I know what tends to happen is we slip and slide through life. Money is sort of accompanies us wherever we go, and often actually dragged around like an angry child. There you go. There's a comment for the all group. And I help people to sort of really to give it the importance that it deserves, so that it serves them, serves their family, and gives them the kind of life that they want to lead. You asked me, how did I come into doing what I'm doing? Well, I started off back in 2015, wanting to get out of the job that I've been in for 13 years. Deciding to become teaching people how to be their own personal bookkeeper. And because I was good at managing my own money, I'll give you the reason why I was good at managing my own money in a minute. And so I thought, oh, great, I've invented this fantastic spreadsheet money management system called money mapping, and I will charge people to help them manage their money. And it'll be a great return on investment because they'll save loads of money and then build up pots of money for the future. And I would invite people along, business people, and I noticed that they just didn't want to do it. It wasn't their ability that stopped them from doing it. It was what was going on in their mind. I had somebody actually vomit because they didn't want to have a look at their finances. They were so fearful of looking at their finances. I had people nearly pass out. And then I had lots of people who seemed like they had really overactive bladders and things. They wanted to go to the loo all the time. And then others that would just sort of gaze out of the window. And I was thinking, what is the matter with you people? So I then decided that I needed to find out more about the psychology of money, because obviously it's not their ability. They were managing millions of pounds, some of them, at work as part of their job as managers, etc. But when it came to their own personal finances, everything was going by the wayside, and statements aren't opened, or you sort of open it, it's not in the red. Oh yeah, that'll do. And none of them were really sort of driving their financial life. It was just sort of drifting along with them, which obviously isn't going to give you that great results, right? Not going to be that brilliant. So I decided to learn all about the psychology of money, ended up going to a place joining the Money Coaching Institute in America. And it was there that I realized that even though I was good at managing my money on a practical level, my relationship with money was, excuse my French, bloody awful. Because all of my wealth building, of which I've been pretty good at, was done from a place of fear, not a place of joy or a feeling abundance. It was actually like hoarding it and almost tyranny to a certain extent. And the reason for that is that money has always been a core running through my life. My mum went through 3 husbands by the time I was 10, and all of the marriages were based on money. My dad he used to write everything down. and like everything was like, used to wear trousers with holes in, and they were perfectly adequate, and furniture would be worn out, and that was perfectly adequate. Whereas my mum, who inherited a shed load of money, she was like a big spender. And actually, when that happened, that was the thing that drove them apart. When money came into their household, he was like writing everything down and wanted to save it, and she was going, let's go on holiday, let's buy a new house, and all this kind of stuff. And it just pulled them apart. Second husband wasn't very nice, which resulted in mum packing my sister and I off to boarding school. So I was 7 when I went off to boarding school. And when I went there, even though I knew I came from or had the feeling that I came from a wealthy family, stepping over into that threshold, I felt like the pauper overnight, because there was some like uber rich people there. So that was interesting. Didn't do much for my self-worth and my self-esteem. Notice, link to finances, value, all that kind of stuff. And then my husband, my mum's third husband, who was her bank manager, he got blackmailed, and he gave all our money away. So overnight I had to come out of boarding school, join the local comprehensive on free school meals, and it felt, much as I'm grateful that we had a roof over our head, etc., it was very, very different from what I got used to at boarding school. And I remember standing in that free school meals queue. I was also the tallest person in what we call the first year. It's the year 7 now. I was also the youngest. I started at 10. I'd skipped a year of school rather than going to primary school. I remember standing in that free school meals queue. I felt that everybody was looking at me. They probably weren't, but I felt that everyone was looking at me. They thought I was the posh kid because I spoke well, even though we didn't have a beam. And I remember clearly saying to myself and thinking I was really angry and saying, I am never going to be beholden to anybody for money when I grow up, and I'm going to become a millionaire. That's what I said. And so I'd set a little intention in the back of my mind. It wasn't like a goal that I strategized and all this kind of stuff, but it was in the back of my mind. And so unbeknownst to me, I became a money hoarder. So I started earning money and putting it away and investing and saving and everything. And when we reached the 7th digit on our net worth statement, and I said to Neil, Neil, we've made it. We've got £1 million on our net worth statement, whatever that means. And he looked at me and he just goes, well, hasn't really got much to do with me, has it? I was like, oh my goodness. And actually realized that we weren't particularly happy. So as you can see, money has sort of like flowed through my life, and I'm just really interested in people's relationships with money, and knowing that if you can improve that relationship with money, you can get wealthier, happier, in a happy way, because you can be wealthy and be bloody miserable too.
Absolutely.
There are plenty of people out there who have plenty of money who are not happy. So my big key around it is to have people have happy wealth, happy money. I'd like to say I wish that was my IP, but unfortunately it belongs to a guy called Ken Honda, by the way.
Oh.
He's written a book called Happy Money, and it's really very, very good.
So okay, at least it's good. That's okay.
That's my first recommendation of the day. Happy Money by Ken Honda.
Okay, brilliant. Right, we'll check him out. Okay, brilliant. It's so interesting to kind of see, it's only when you look back on a journey sometimes, isn't it, that you can see where those kind of key things kind of started, like the seeds were planted, and then how it's kind of affected your life without kind of you realizing it at the time.
Absolutely. And when I look back to my childhood, every memory I have around money before I went to boarding school, which are the key years 0 to 7, which is when your child, your people's children, all children, up until about the age of 7, everything that they see and they hear and are told, they take as read, because the other part of their brain isn't developed yet. So we need to be very careful what we put in front of our children up until their brains start to develop. And when I think about what I saw around money up until that time, it was always conflict, fighting, arguments, stressful energy, just always a feeling of stress around it.
Yeah.
Real stress around it, and it lasts, you know. And so there's no wonder that even as that story progressed, that when I did decide that I wanted to be rich, it was a very much an away from motivation, i.e. I want to be rich because I don't want to be poor, rather than I want to be rich so I can have a nice house and lead a really lovely life and have the choices and all this kind of stuff and lead an abundant life. It was really a case of getting wealthy through scarcity and not through abundance. And that's a big, big, big difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's really kind of poignant at the moment with what's reported as the living crisis, the cost of living crisis. It's the word scarcity kind of comes to mind when I think about that.
It does. I'm very torn on this, because the thing is, there are very definitely people out there who are seriously struggling. I mean, I was hearing a man on the radio the other day. He was in his late 50s. He had a business which he lost during lockdown, had some mental health issues. He's now on benefits. He never ever thought that he was going to end up this way. And just by being on benefits, he just can't make ends meet. You know, he's for 140 jobs in the last 4 months, and he's had 3 replies. Now that I can really understand why people like him are very near to tears on most days. And when you go, come along, then let's raise your vibration and let's get that, you know, I can understand why I might get flicked the V's by him. However, there are still many, 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 many of us who are sitting there on our £50 a month mobile phones, ordering a Domino's pizza on a Friday night, booking a holiday in the summer, albeit not to the Maldives, and now maybe it might be to Tenerife this year, still driving around in a lease car, still just about managing to pay the mortgage payments, although that's a subject on its own. And, you know, there is plenty of wriggle room, whereas actually if you took advantage of that wriggle room, your situation could change hugely. And for many as well, sorry to bang on about this, but I'm quite passionate, you know, the lack of gratitude that many of us have for the things that we do have. Like, this may sound, people might raise their eyebrows at me, but when I get my water bill, I look at my water bill and I'm very happy to pay my water bill, because for me to have endless water coming out of the tap whenever I want it to, I think is an absolutely amazing thing. You know, to put the lights on and all that kind of stuff. And yes, I know it costs money, but still, it's a fantastic thing to have. And I think that it's a lot healthier to try and be grateful for these little things and find gratitude in every day. And actually, my gratitude practice is one of the key things that has changed me from being a money tyrant to more of a money magician.
Wow.
And it's
so
money types in a bit.
Yes, and it's so true. Like, we still see adverts on the TV now about children in different countries that are having to walk miles to go and get water that isn't clean, that is still really dangerous for them. And we often detach ourselves from that, don't we, and go, that's happening somewhere else, and it's kind of it's not happening here for us right now. And yeah, just being able to walk into the kitchen and turn on the tap and drink from that is, to someone else, could be, that's the difference between like life or death. And
it's interesting actually, because a little while back I was delivering a service for the NSPCC, the NSPCC school service, teaching little ones about different types of abuse. And I happened to meet somebody who was a teacher who'd come across on an exchange from India. And I was chatting to him and I was talking about the differences in education. And he was going, you know, it's incredible. I walk into this classroom and there are 25 kids in this classroom. The whole classroom is festooned with decorations, interactive whiteboards, boxes of pens and marker pens and rubbers and rulers and all this kind of stuff. He said, there are 4 teaching assistants in the class that I'm in for children with troubles, and the classroom's so noisy. He said, it's so noisy all the time. He said, everyone's, it's noisy. He said, my classroom, I have 90 children. We sit in one barn, which is open at the sides. I have one chalkboard, and every single one of those children sits there just wanting to learn. Their brains just open and look and seeing the opportunity for what it is to actually learn from me, he said, from me. And that makes him feel good. And you look at the whole culture around our education system, and it's just upside down and back to front. I mean, that's not the conversation that we're having today, but maybe another time. But it's, we need to change this culture.
Absolutely.
It's not heading anywhere fast.
No, for sure.
And again, the gratitude that we have for, we just take it as our right that we should have an education system. Maybe that's okay, but maybe have some gratitude for it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting to hear about, just the different kind of perspectives people have because of what they've seen and what they live effectively as well. So brilliant. Thank you so much for that. So as you mentioned earlier, your children they're still your children, of course, but they are they are a little bit older. So what I'd love, Fanny, if you could just think of one either little gold nugget, a bit of advice or information, or just something that if you rewound the clock and you were sitting there with like your firstborn and they were like 6 months old or something like that, what you would wish you knew then, what you could perhaps pass on to people now.
Well, I'm going to actually pass on something that I did know, right? And there is no such thing as a perfect parent, and we are all here to F up our kids. There's even a book called it and a poem and all that kind of stuff. And whatever you do, you are going to make mistakes. However, I remember my mum telling me she started driving when she was pregnant. And the first thing the driving instructor said to her, you have in front of you a lethal weapon. And it just got me thinking, right? And I don't know quite where it happened, but I do remember holding Connie, my eldest, after she'd been born. And I think there was a song playing on the radio. Is it what's the song? I believe the children are our future. You know that one? It wasn't Whitney Houston version, it was the other version. And came across those two things, and I was holding this baby, and I just went, my job as a parent is to help this child in any way I can to become a better human being than I am. And I need to make sure that I give it every opportunity and train it to live in this world, train her to live in this world, to be able to handle money, handle social situations, handle her self-worth and the way she feels, every single thing, to make this person be our future as human beings. And I vowed to myself that if I didn't know what to do, I would learn. And I think that's the thing. And I think that's the main thing, really, is just to be with your child and look at your child and treat it as the future of humanity. And that, you never know, it might be your child that changes the world.
That is just the best thought, isn't it? Imagine. Yeah. You're right, you never know, you absolutely don't. And I think if we all think like that as a parent, thinking our child could be that one person, then that would be a really kind of powerful thing. And it's really interesting you say about, if you don't know something, to learn about it, because I feel like there's such a pressure for parents to know everything, I feel like as a mother as well, you're just expected to know. Like, I remember when my little boy was a baby, and I thought, right, well, I know I need to feed him, and I know I need to change his nappy, and I know I need to not let him play in traffic and put his fingers in plug sockets. Like, I know I need to keep him alive. But actually, very much outside of that, I don't really know. And that can often, I think, lead to kind of feelings of guilt and trying to keep up with people around you and trying to fit in. And it's a minefield for parents to be like, oh gosh, well, should my baby be doing that? Or I don't quite know what to do that. Oh, but they're doing that. And it can just be such an overwhelming experience.
Oh, it's I remember when Connie went to nursery and she was like so good at writing at nursery, because with a name like Connie, it's all circle things, like you can do like a row circle sort of thing. As soon as she got to school, she said, I don't want to have anything to do with it. She just literally turned off everything to do with letters and reading and everything. And it got, they got to that point where, what was it, Pip and Jim or something? What are the books they
Biff and Chip?
Biff and Chip, right? And you had the mums walking around, and when your child got put up a book, you carry it to go, oh, we're on number 9 now. And I remember just thinking, oh my goodness, we're still only on 2. And how it I allowed it to affect me. And we just mustn't do that. And there is one more thing I would say.
Yes.
And I think this is one thing I really do wish I'd known. I wish I had been introduced to Carol Dweck and the book Mindset.
Okay.
Right. And if I really do, because this is an absolute must now. Conditional and unconditional love is absolutely vital when you're parenting. When you say, have you been a good boy? They're always a good boy. You're just talking about their behavior.
Yes.
We can't, my mum put conditions on me right from the get-go. And I have to honestly say that it's only been since I've done all my personal development work and therapy and everything that I've sorted it out. It's the number one thing that can change the children of today, I think, by actually making sure that love is not conditional.
Absolutely. And I really hear you when I think about, so my little boy, when I think about like dinner time or lunchtime when he's at home, I remember being told as a child, you need to finish all your dinner. You have to finish every single thing that's on your plate. Otherwise you can't get down from the table, or you can't have dessert. But actually that made quite an unhealthy relationship between me and food growing up. So now I kind of say to my son, we only eat when we're hungry. And when our tummy is full, we stop eating, no matter how much is left on his plate, because I want to try and instill in him a healthy relationship with food. And I try not to say, like, if he's cleared his plate, I go, oh, I don't want to say like, oh, well done, because I don't want him to think, oh, I get praise if I finish all my food. Absolutely. And making, that's it. And as you say, like, oh, you're not, you're always a good child. It's just behavior sometimes can be challenging or different. And it's just, and I think that always derives from an emotional state as well. I feel like children only ever do something that we deem as bad or naughty, but it's coming from a place of an emotion. They are feeling something or experiencing something.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like when we say I am happy. I am not happy. It's not an identity. It's not a label. I am feeling happiness at this moment.
Yes.
Right. I am angry. No, it's not a label. It's not an identity. I'm feeling anger at this moment.
Yeah.
Mummy's angry. No, I'm feeling angry. The thing that you just did hasn't made me feel very happy. In fact, it's made me feel quite angry. Shall we talk about it? Not, you're a bad boy, I'm angry. Two labels. Boom, boom. Just got to stay away from the labels.
Absolutely. That's really interesting to hear, and really kind of quite important as well, because they're quite small things, aren't they, that we can do?
They're tiny, but they're tiny, and they're also very easy to slip up on.
Yes.
So Jeff, for anybody out there who hasn't heard of this Carol Dweck mindset book, you'll know it from, you've heard the phrase growth mindset and fixed mindset.
Yeah.
She invented it, and that's what that book's all about.
Wow. Okay.
And if somebody had have given me that book when I was a young mum, it would have changed a lot of things for me.
Perfect. So that's the ideal gift for someone's baby shower, maybe.
Very much so.
Yes.
I really think so. Really good book. Be a bit hard. There's a bit of a funny sporty bit in the middle, but hey, you can skip that bit.
Brilliant. Okay, noted. Thank you so much
but
for that.
You know, like there's all bits about, you know, do you put the picture on the fridge and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
You know, when little Johnny comes home from school,
Yeah.
and, you know, gives a picture, and you know, it's all that decision. Do you put what's the whole psychology about getting it on the fridge?
Ah.
It's very, very interesting. So I would recommend that to all young parents.
No, I'm going to have a look at that because my fridge is, you can't even see the fridge. It's just full of, you know, anything that, because my son doesn't, they call him a reluctant writer. Because he doesn't
Another
like
lady.
So
Another
anything,
lady.
yeah, that exactly that. So anything he does do, I'm like, right, we're putting it up here because I love to see it. And I feel like I'm showing him that I'm proud of him, but I don't know, maybe I'll read the book and find out whether I should be doing that or not, really. But okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for that. So what I'd like to do now, Fanny, is to move on to some advice that you can give us.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with budgeting?
Well, okay, so let's reframe the whole thing.
Okay.
So for those who are listening who see money as bothersome, burden, boring, like the words bank statement or budget, let's try and recraft it, because like I said, you're going to have money with you pretty much 24/7, because we're all sitting here spending money, right? While, you know, lights on, charging phones, whatever, 24 hours a day we're spending money.
Yeah.
Let's frame it a little bit differently, and let's frame it as a financial adventure.
Oh, okay. That sounds good. Yeah.
We're not talking Dora the Explorer. We're talking more Indiana Jones.
Oh, even better. Okay.
Well, so whereas you might be thinking it'd be quite nice just to wander around with your backpack on like Dora does. I don't know, she still exists, Dora the Explorer.
She's probably out there somewhere. Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, Indiana Jones, as we remember, he often had to run down corridors with fireballs chasing him, and dived into nests of vipers and all that kind of stuff. And that happens in financial life. But the more resilient we become, and the more open we become, and the more curious and courageous we become, we get clarity, and we can set ourselves on a course to get to wherever we want to do. So thinking about any adventure, you're going to need some stuff, kit. You're going to need a map, which is the money map, which that's what I call a budget, really, or a spending plan. So we ditch the B word, replace it with an M word. You're going to need a compass so that you can keep on track once you've got your map. You're going to need a destination. There's no point, you've got to go somewhere, right? And then you need to have the mindset and the motivation to get there. Because if you actually really don't want to go, or you don't want to have anything to do with it, it's not going to be much of an adventure. We need to get you zhuzhed up so that you think, yep, okay, I'm willing to put on my boots and my hat and off we'll go. So any four of those things. So let's think about, so you can start where you want to start, really, because everybody will be different. So if you're sitting there and you're going, oh God, I really don't want anything to do with this, the last place I would start would be the map, because to sit down and start putting numbers in boxes is really not going to be your thing, is it, really? So, and also thinking about a destination might also be hard, because if you're having this identity, you've slapped this label on yourself that says, I'm not any good at money, then it's going to be very difficult to think up a destination if you really don't believe that you're going to get there. So maybe leave those two. So you could start with a compass. Just starting to get a little bit closer to your numbers. And something that I recommend is an app, which is called Money Dashboard, which is where you can start looking at your numbers in a bit more of a jolly way. So this app is free. And I mean, if you're banking with, if you're just with one bank, now they usually have some kind of budgeting thing that you can look at if you're one of the modern banks. So for instance, when you'll notice that if you go and buy some petrol for the car, they might already put it in the category of transport. You know, if you go to the Lidl and get your weekly shop, chances are they might call it groceries. And then you can go and go, well, how much did we spend on groceries this month? So you're starting to get just a little bit of a handle. So if you know, that's one place you could start. Money Dashboard is brilliant because if you have a number of accounts and credit cards, you can put them all into one place and the transactions run in date order. So you can see them all together in one place. So you haven't got to go, well, how much have we spent on that? How much have we spent on that? Oh God, we got that going out of that account and that going out, and it's all terribly complicated.
Yeah.
This actually just brings it all together so you can see it all in one place. Bloody marvelous it is. Really good. And it's recently been bought by ClearScore.
Okay.
Who are one of the credit reference agencies. So long may it continue to be around. I've been using it since 2017, like almost when it first started, and I absolutely love it. So I now have a daily practice, which is what I would recommend to anyone, a daily practice of 5 minutes, whereby I just go in, make sure all the transactions are tagged, and then at the end of the month I can see what I spent. Then the idea is that you would match what you see on your compass to your map, and you suddenly go, but I haven't got a map. So then it might inspire you to start thinking about money mapping.
Right.
Okay? So for those people who are like, oh, this is just all too much, we better start on the mindset and the motivation.
Yeah.
This is where the money types come in. When I trained at the Money Coaching Institute, they taught us about 8 money archetypes. So 8 fictional characters who all behave and think about money very differently. And we have all of those money types within us.
Yes.
And it just depends which ones are what I call driving our financial life.
Okay.
So the way we work it is I give you a tour bus to go on your financial adventure, right? It's a really nice tour bus. And then we look at your money types, and I'll quickly whiz through them in a minute. And I ask you, who is driving your financial life? So there was a famous quote by a writer called Ayn Rand, and she said, money is simply a tool. It will take you wherever you wish to go, but it will not replace you as the driver. So who is driving? Have you ever seen a film called Inside Out?
Yes,
Disney
I
film.
have. Yes.
Right. So anybody who hasn't seen that film, watch the film. Absolutely amazing. But this is the sort of thing that we've got. We've got 8 voices in our heads that all sort of say different things when it comes to money. So the 8 money types are the innocent, which is the one head in the sand, don't really want to have anything to do with it. I'm rubbish with money, would love somebody else to come along and sort it all out for them. Bit over trusting, always asking people others' opinions, can't make a decision. Oh my goodness, smile on the outside, anxious on the inside. I just go to sleep and hopefully it's all gone away tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's the innocent. Victim, well, you know, whatever I do, nothing works. It's just really hard. I've done, you know, I've tried this, I've tried that, nothing happened. And, you know, and if my parents had taught me better, I would have been so much better at money. So blaming other people, living in the past, because let's face it, some of these stories, a bit like my money story with my mum married. If I could stay there, that's so much more interesting than what's going on in my life right now. But we don't have to live in the past. And actually, if we are still living in past stories of woe is me and doom and gloom, time to move on, because we have to do something with that and move on. So then we got that innocent. Then we got the warrior, the money type of action. We all want him, her, it. So we all want our warrior to be at the wheel of our financial bus, because they're the ones that are going to be financially savvy, motivated, on it, you know, keeping up with it, switching, card tarting, whatever, all that kind of stuff. So we want that. And then we've got the martyr. Oh, you know, if I don't do it, nobody else will, you know, tends to give more than they receive. So always good at giving presents, not very good at receiving.
Yeah.
Often becomes quite judgmental because you become quite a perfectionist when you've got martyr tendencies, because nobody does things as well as you do, right? But then it's like, well, I have to do everything, you know.
Sounds a little bit like me, actually, if I'm honest. Yeah.
We've all got a bit martyr inside us, but yeah, so that's the thing. And you can get a little bit judgmental sometimes and be disappointed in other people's performances, because, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So martyr, although there are some lovely bits for the martyr, martyrs can be compassionate and wise and lovely as well, but they, in its extremes, not great. Fool, roller coaster of money life. Due diligence is not their middle name by any stretch of the imagination. Goes into deals without thinking things. Doesn't think about tomorrow, doesn't think about pensions, doesn't think, you know, YOLO, you only live once, all that kind of stuff. And would be lovely, would give the shirt off their back to you. And leave themselves short because they just not really. Emotional spending can come out with Fool as well. So, you know, I've worked really hard this week, sod it, let's go and blow everything that I've saved on a curry and a couple of bottles of Prosecco. That can happen, you know, and then wake up with post-purchase depression the next day. That can happen. Then we've got the creator artist. Creator artist is the one who's conflicted. So never quite sure where they fit into the world. I'm not materialistic, but I would like to have a bit more money. Chances are, if they're running a business, they might give away too much of their services for free. They'll undercharge. How can I have money when they're all starving children in Africa? But then on the other hand, can't quite get it in. But lovely, creative and spiritual as well. Then number 7 is the tyrant, who can become controlling, manipulative, hoarding, secretive, not very nice, actually, where money is all important. Yeah, financially successful, but thinks that if they're financially successful, then that's going to buy them love. Really, the tyrant in its extreme. I wasn't totally extreme, by the way. Think, you know, what they really want is everything that money can't buy, which is love and all that kind of stuff. Donald Trump comes to mind when we're talking about tyranny.
Okay, I hear you. Yep.
So, you know, come to me, give me I was going to be rude, then I'm not going to do that. So, yeah, you know, never mind, we won't go there. And then we have the magician. We love the magician. So we love the magician, we love the warrior, and we like a bit of the creator artist. The magician is the money type of faith, trust, and balance. So it's when you're able to make decisions without being attached to the outcome. So basically, you make a decision, it all goes peak tong. You go, okay, I made that decision with clarity, and, you know, I was clear, I knew what I was doing, so it's gone wrong, never mind, we move on. The magician knows that if they rock up every day and do good things in the world, everything will be okay. You don't work for the money, you work for the service that you're giving, but you also know that money is important. So open to flow, spiritual, conscious, aware, wise, generous, but not over generous. The one that sort of got it all in, you know, got it all going on.
Yeah.
So those are your 8 characters. You now need to work out which ones are driving your life, and you'll be able to feel them when you get to know them. On my website, there's a money type quiz which people can take, fannysnaith.com, and it'll give you the results, and it gives you also on there's full descriptions of all the money types. So it's a good idea to rather than going, I'm just rubbish with money, and slapping a label on, or, oh, I just spend it all the time, or, you know, whatever you tend to say around money, dig into it a bit more. And if you can start trying to recognize what's behind some of that behavior, or the kind of behavior that you have with money, if you can name it, you can change it.
Yeah.
So it's like a framework.
Yeah.
To work within, really, rather than, you can say, God, I've had a bit of an innocent day today. And actually, these money types, they're not just about money, they're about many other parts of your life as well.
Right.
You know? So it's
brilliant. Okay, so yeah, go to your website, take the money quiz, see what's coming up, and then read it to them and see who's driving it.
Yeah. And well, you take the quiz and it'll come up with results. But we're going back to the question of, so how do we, you know, where do we start? I think the first place that we start is having the mindset that money is not this god awful thing that we have to deal with. Go into it with an adventure. Go embrace the topic with curiosity, creativity, courage, consistency, confidence. Lots of fight with the C words there.
Yes,
And
definitely.
then make sure you visit all the 4 parts: map, destination, compass, and mindset. Sorry. And you'll sort of cover it, because you'll end up learning about investing and saving and all sorts of stuff. Excuse me. Cough.
Bless you.
So there you are. When it comes to budgeting, you have to have a budget. You have to have a money map.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the guide of roughly what you're going to spend each month, how are you ever going to get forward? There's no point thinking about Christmas on the 1st of December.
No.
You're going to have a huge spike in your cash flow. So for anybody who has a business or has, worked in a business, what everybody's always talking about is a nice, smooth cash flow. And we want exactly the same in our personal life. So money mapping helps us to map out everything. We give every pound a purpose. So we use the 0 budgeting method, which is basically income, less expenses, less debts, less investing equals 0. Not 1, not -1, equals 0. So that every pound has a purpose. So we think about all the things that we spend our money on, but we also think about how we spend our money. And I divided it into 3 categories. So you have everyday spends, which are things like supermarket, coffees, petrol. You know roughly how much, you know how much money you've budgeted or you've planned, you've mapped to spend that month, but you're going to make a number of transactions. So you need the money to be available to you. You don't have to start moving it from savings accounts and all that sort of stuff. So you basically leave your everyday spends in your current account.
Yeah.
Then you have automated spends.
Yeah.
So anything that you can automate: subscriptions, direct debit, standing orders.
Yeah.
Anything you can automate, put in one space. And then we have sometimes spends, which are things like Christmas, birthdays, maybe haircuts, opticians, all those things that we know we've got to spend money on during the year, but we're not going to go every month.
Okay.
So for instance, I don't know how, my glasses, these glasses, I think they were 250 quid or something. So I'm hoping these will probably last me a couple of years, but let's say if you're spending 240 quid on a pair of glasses, that means I need to start putting away £20 a month for the next pair, because I want the money to be sitting there before I go to the opticians, not have to find it and go, oh God, I had to pay the optician this month. I cannot tell you how your whole life changes when you get to live your financial life on the front foot. So for instance, you start mapping in January, let's say, and you saving up money for Christmas. Let's say you put £100 a month aside for Christmas. When it comes to you starting to buy Christmas presents and the money is sitting there, the joy of Christmas really comes to the fore. People tell me all the time, say, Fanny, I cannot believe, Christmas is always a really good one, I can't believe how different Christmas has been this year, when I was able to see a pot of money that I joyfully spent because I knew that's what it was for.
Absolutely. Just because when I think about spending for Christmas, I think about, you're really mindful of what you buy because of the cost of it, rather than if you already had that money sitting there, you're just the whole experience and attitude, I guess, around it to buying presents for people. It becomes less about just buying them a present, and I guess more thought can go into it. Oh, actually, I think so-and-so would really, really like that. I've got the money to buy it for them.
And the same with holidays. So for instance, if you, I don't know how, my glasses, these glasses, I think they were 250 quid or something. So I'm hoping these will probably last me a couple of years, but let's say the same with holidays. You know, oh my God, we were so stressed, you know, we just had to go on holiday. So you go on holiday, put it on the credit card, and the chances are you haven't even paid it off before next year's holiday is coming up. You know, it's like, and I can imagine that there's possibly some people sitting there screaming at the screen going, well, we can't afford to do that. At first, you won't. It's something that's built up over time. So for instance, let's say you did spend 1,200 quid on Christmas last year. You know, we're in May now. So May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, we've got 8 months left. If you were to do 1,200 quid divided by 8, you've got to start putting £150 a month aside. Right? That sounds hard, right? Yeah. However, if you're still going to get to Christmas and spend 1,200 quid, so even if you put £10 a month aside or £20 a month aside, just start.
Yeah.
And build it up. You know, it's rare that people will have enough money set aside right now to what I call charge all their pots. So like, for instance, all the sometimes spend. So, you know, so that they're all full before they start. So the only other way to do it is just do it gradually. Just start trying to get ahead of yourself. And if it means nipping and tucking and snipping and cutting, then those are the sacrifices that we have to make. I made lots of sacrifices when I was younger, and by God, I'm so grateful I did now. Not, you know, I didn't lead a miserable life at all, but I just early on, I tried to make a decision as to what I really valued. And things, luckily, I don't know whether it's luck or whatever, but I didn't value Gucci handbags, or it just didn't do anything for me, really. So it was easier for me to put that money into investments.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you, Fanny, actually, because it's something that I think came up here when I bought my first house with my husband. The idea of debt really I found it really difficult to deal with. Not the mortgage, but say, for example, we were looking at fridges or washing machines or cookers. And I just always had a notion in my head that I couldn't buy anything unless I had the full amount to pay for it. And my husband came from a place of, he'd had a credit card and he'd paid things off monthly, and he was totally fine with it. And I was like, well, I can't buy something if I don't have the full amount to pay for it. And it really took me a long time to accept that paying monthly for something was okay, or if I didn't have the full amount, because say, for example, someone's boiler breaks, there's very few of us that would have the money in the bank to then pay out outright for a new boiler. So I was going to ask you kind of what you think about that, and kind of perhaps where that comes from, maybe.
So interesting what you said. So you found it very difficult to buy something on the never never.
Yes.
To spend your future income on what you're buying now.
Yes.
Good.
Okay.
Right. That's what I would say, first of all. Although we know, so interesting. So what you just said, yes, most of us live that way. Most people live paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of savings that people have is pitifully low. I'm not going to give you figures, but I get the figures from the Money Charity every month, and they are reasonably interesting. What I do know is that as a country, we pay £139 million a day in interest. So of all those people who believe that they buy things on the never never and pay interest on it, I'm not talking about on 0%. Whereas I know it's difficult to get out of that loop and needs to be done gradually, there really is no arguments for buying things and then paying 25% or however much it is on top of it in interest.
Right.
I don't, you know, if you've got, I mean, I will buy things, and I have an interest-free credit card, and I will buy things on that, using that credit card, but I will only do it when I've got the money sitting in another bank account earning interest. So I could pay it all off with it. Not the same as mortgages, obviously. And that's the next thing, is that, we're getting literally stung at the moment with mortgages. But this thing about buying, this culture of buying things and paying later, only really came about with the Access credit card back in the 70s. Once we started getting credit cards, that's what we started to do. And there is no doubt that when people are buying things and paying for them later, they are paying more for them. It's psychologically, how draining is it when you're paying for your fridge freezer 4 years? I did it, right? I remember when DFS, I think they still do it, DFS, and they used to do 4 years interest-free credit, right? So I bought, in 1997, I bought 2 sofas and a poof, right? on interest-free credit. And you didn't pay anything for a year. And then you paid it off over 3 years later, right? On interest-free. Incredible deal. So I took it. Why would I not do that? Why would I not keep the money in my account instead of putting it into theirs? I didn't have the money set aside at that time. And it just felt like a psychological burden.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. It wasn't necessarily. It was, it was a good deal. But I just was like, oh, God, I'm just seem to be just paying for this. It's like just another bill. Why isn't it just gone? I don't want to pay for it anymore. So I think it's thinking about the psychological thing. How does it affect you psychologically?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about investing for our children.
Okay. So this is another thing I wish I'd done, which I didn't. So if you can start setting some money aside for your children as soon as they're born, even if it's £20 a month or something like that, we have to remember that one of the biggest bonuses of investing is the benefit of compound interest. Compound interest is when, so for instance, if you put £100 in the bank and it's on 5% interest, at the end of year 1, you'll have £105. If you leave that £5 in and then you get another 5% interest, you get 5% on £105. So it's like the £5 plus a little bit more, and then plus a little bit more, and plus a little bit more. The 8th wonder of the world, compound interest, because the interest earns the interest, and earns the interest, and earns the interest. Yeah. And if you were to, so there's 2 ways that you can start saving for your child. Well, actually, there's more than 2 ways, but there are 2 ways that I consider to be the best way to do, and that's through an ISA, a junior ISA. Yeah, it means you can put up to £9,000 a year in there, and that money will always be tax-free for them, including how it grows, right? So, there are such people as ISA millionaires, because when you're an adult, you can put £20,000 in there. So there are 2 different types of ISA that they can have. They can have a cash ISA, which is where you just put money in and you earn an interest rate. Up until now, in fact, even now, the interest rates have been really pitiful. Right. So it's hardly been worth it. And also, in a savings account, you can earn up to a grand or so in interest, which means you're investing something like 35,000 quid or something to get a grand in interest, because the interest rates have been so low, before you pay tax anyway. So you could put money into a cash ISA if you want to, that's a choice, but you could also consider putting money into a stocks and shares ISA, which I know some people go, the stock market, but the importance being that if you're going to put money in the stock market, which means you're buying a little piece of lots of companies. We're not talking about putting on the stock market and put it all on Apple or putting it all on Coca-Cola. We're talking about maybe, and I have to be very careful what I say here, because I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not allowed to give advice, but I will tell you what I did with my children later, but obviously, is I would invest in something like what they call a global all cap fund, including emerging markets, let's say. So what that means is you're investing in all the world, all over the world. You're going to be investing in all caps, so it's like different size businesses, small, medium and large businesses. And what you also want to look for is a fund that invests in all the different sectors, so finance, pharmaceuticals, retail, hospitality, etc. Yeah, electronics, tech, all that kind of thing. So what you're doing is you're going, okay, so I'm taking this £10 and I'm investing it. Some of the funds have got like 7,000 companies in them.
Oh,
and you spread your £10 amongst all these companies. And yeah, of course, some are going to go bust over time. But that's by diversifying your investment, chances are it's going to do okay. And if you look at the stock market over time, any of the stock markets like the S&P 500, the FTSE 100, the FTSE indexes, the Dow Jones, the NASDAQ, if you look at all of those over time, like a long period of time, not 1-2 years, but like if you're thinking for your child, maybe up to 18, let's say,
yeah,
it's done well. There are investors that, let's say, for instance, if you invested for 10 years in the 80s, you might make diddly squat. But because things weren't so good. But if from a child's point of view, if you're doing something from that early age and you're getting the compound, you should end up with something really rather special.
Brilliant. That's really interesting to hear.
It is the benefit of time. So maybe a yearly gift from grandma or grandpa or whatever. Instead of getting some. I mean, here we go. Look. So instead of giving people these £3.50 birthday cards that you have to buy now, just don't buy the £3.50 birthday card, perhaps, or maybe buy it once. And if grandma buys little Lucy a birthday card, take it back and send her the same one every year. This is what my husband and I do. We've had the same Christmas card we've exchanged between us since 1997.
Oh,
since we started, and going back and looking, the Christmas cards come out with the Christmas decorations.
Yeah.
And it's got an added piece of paper into it now because obviously it's got so many messages on it. It's lovely to look through.
Yes.
And we do the same with Valentine's cards. We do the same with birthday cards and anniversary cards. To buy one card and then we do it. But if you think about buying your grandson or your child a birthday card every year, what do they do with it? They open it up and they go, oh, that's nice, toss it aside. And I mean, do you remember any of the birthday cards you got last year?
Well, I do. I keep everything in a box in the hope that one day when he turns 18, my son will joyfully sit and look through all of these years worth of birthday cards. But in reality, is that going to happen? Probably not.
It's so funny. We think we do this every year at Christmas and we go, so how many of our neighbours are we going to burden with a Christmas card this year?
Yes.
And do you know what? I've got 2 plastic boxes in the loft of the girls' things, one for Connie and one for Ren. Neither of them are interested.
No. Oh gosh, that makes me sad, but also realistic. Yeah. Okay, that's a really lovely idea, actually, of having that one, especially for grandparents and actually for parents as well. I think that's actually a really lovely thing to do because everything's then kept together and you can see the trail almost. And
put some money in the savings account. Put some money in the junior ISA instead.
Yeah, because like you say, it's got the gift of time and just little bits here and there that are always going to do.
And then when they get to a certain age, which only you will know as a parent, and this is the next thing about kids, show them. And actually, take them to Disney and go, you own a bit of this, by the way. Just saying. iPhone, got their first iPhone. You own a bit of Apple. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Not much, but you do.
Yeah.
Gosh. Domino's, you own a bit of that.
Yes.
Johnson & Johnson, just wash your hair. You own a bit of that.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
What do you mean? Well, let's go and have a look, shall we?
Yeah.
And the thing is, chances are you probably won't have a clue how it works. You don't, just be curious to know.
Yeah.
What is this fund, this global all cap fund thing? What is it? Where that is absolutely okay for you not to know.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's so easy to learn when you
Yeah.
remove the barrier and just put that curiosity cap on.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. Right, lastly, couple dynamics. So obviously parents, or
Yeah,
whether
well,
they're together or not, but mostly together. Yeah, couple dynamics.
so I would suggest, if for those of you that are together, both of you take the money type quiz and
Yeah.
see what comes up. The ideal relationship, money wise, would be for two magicians, two warriors, and a bit of creator artist. That would be great. And
Yeah.
then to maybe split the responsibility. So, or decide what you're going to do, right? I'm responsible for switching the gas, electricity, or whatever looking after the gas and electricity accounts. You're responsible for making sure the credit card's paid off somehow. So you have a split. Not
Okay.
one taking the responsibility, the other go, I don't know, she copes with all of that, or he copes with all of that. The dynamic that tends to happen, and is something that happened in my life as well, is you go into a relationship. First of all, you won't have had a conversation about money. So you sort of, and everything's all lovely and it's all nice and all that sort of thing. Then the first thing you've got to do is organize a bloody wedding, right? Which is huge financial. So you're going to start working out then what your values are around money. I suggest do it before. I mean, I'm coaching a couple at the moment who are working with me to prevent worries with money going forward, so they can have a great relationship with money. I understand that's not for everybody, but so what generally tends to happen is you have a warrior and then you have an innocent. So the warrior is the one of action who tends to do the money, and the innocent goes, oh, I'm rubbish with money, I just let them do that. And that's all fine. But what tends to happen over time is that the warrior, after many years, starts to get a bit annoyed and will move into martyr. Well, if I don't do it, who else is going to do it, right? It's like, and I wouldn't trust them to do it anyway, because they like rubbish at it, and they've been able to, you've basically enabled them to practice being rubbish at it all this time as well. So by the time you start slipping into martyr and start dropping these little passive aggressive comments like, well, if I don't do it, nobody's going to do it, what's going to happen to the innocent is they start shifting into victim. Well, I'm never going to be good enough, I'm never going to be able to do it. They just blame me all the time. Whatever I do, I can't do it. Can't be good enough. And then once you've slipped firmly into martyr, a little bit down the line, the victim will then start feeling sorry for themselves, and you might start to see emotional spending coming out, being more financially irresponsible. And then what could happen is that the martyr then slips into tyrant, and it's not a great dynamic at all. I see it a lot. I do see it a lot. It's not the only dynamic, but to go through all of them is really tricky. I mean, I've two active fools is worrying. There is one thing I must say about the money types, because we talked about labels earlier, and this is really important. When we're talking about driving your financial life, and we're working out who's at the wheel of that bus, that tour bus that I gave you, and you can see it by your results, we must remember that the money types are not who you are. They're just where you are. So it's all dynamic. You can put another driver in the driving seat when you are conscious and aware of who is already in the driving seat.
Right.
It's like going, oh my God, I can see that I've got my fool in the driving seat. I don't want that. I want my magician. So what does the magician do? Oh yes, and I've got to try and be open to flow. I've got to try and learn things about this and do that. Okay, maybe I can do a couple of steps to bring my magician out, and then try and entice my fool to the back of the bus and put my warrior and my magician in the driving seat.
Yeah.
We all have all of them within us. We do, right? We do. We really do. So that's really important to say. So couple dynamics, again, I would look at the money types and use those as a framework. But I would say that both parties must not give away their power over the finances.
It's interesting you say that, because I feel like it can often be the case where perhaps the male takes the lead with finances. When I think about mums and going on maternity leave, and they then, depends what their specific workplace package might be like in relation to maternity leave, then dropping down to statutory pay from the government, which is not a lot at all, and then depending on how much time they choose to have off, like I then had it when I went down to no pay at all. So when I think about the different dynamics when it comes to kind of around having a baby as well, it's interesting you say about not giving away your power.
And let's think about it as well, is that if you think about a woman having a child and being off work, your chances are you'll be doing most of the spending. So you've got this interesting dynamic of like, I have no money coming in, I'm relying on my partner, I'm doing most of the spending. It can very easily send you into a tailspin. So the idea is to just be conscious of that, and again, just try and stay balanced with it. And when you start having uncomfortable feelings of inadequacy, inequality, hearing your partner going, how much? And all this kind of stuff, is just to keep your head and go, what's going on here? What actually is happening here? Let's be open and honest about this, and let's see what we can do, because I feel bad, you feel bad. Let's see if we can get to a place where we can be both happy, because it can happen. And that comes down to having a map, so you know how much you're going to be able to spend on baby blankets this month from your monthly visit to IKEA, cushions and candles. And if it's not in the budget, you don't spend it, and you know how much you're supposed to be spending on the groceries and all that kind of stuff. So you've got a guideline that you both know that you can stay within, or you're going to do your damnedest to stay within as much as you can. But at least then you're working together, and you haven't got these grey areas. I call them murky pots, where you just where you just don't really there's money, but I don't really know where it's going. It's just getting clear, clarity on it. Clarity and honesty go hand in hand so beautifully. When you're working as a couple,
definitely.
And it's not easy. It's not easy, which is why I think it's so important to treat it, if we can, as an adventure. Rather than go, well, it's not easy, it's really, really hard. You can do that, but then it's very easy to slip into martyr, victim, wherever. Actually, we'll just leave it. I won't bother this month, we'll do it next month. And then next month comes in, it's all a bit,
Oh, brilliant. Oh, Fanny, thank you so much. I have found this really encouraging and interesting. I've got 2 people I'm going to go and check out. I've got the money quiz to do and go and see who's driving at the moment. Absolutely. So I'm going to go and check that out. And yes, thank you so much for coming on.
If anybody's interested, I also, because I used to run a program, I do run it every now and again, a program called My Money Makeover, where we have a group of people and we meet together once a week for 10 weeks. And we go through money mapping and destination and mindset and all that kind of stuff as a group. And it also encourages people to talk about things. I've got a wait list for it on my website if anybody's interested. The course is $499 for 10 weeks.
Right.
But from that, I have lifted the money mapping system, and also offer that as a standalone course, a DIY, do it on your own videos, and showing you how to use the money map, and with my Excel spreadsheet, which has got colors and everything in it.
Yes.
And so that's all. I also sell that, and that's priced at £88. If anybody's interested in that, just sign up. Just go and take the money type quiz.
Yeah.
Also, I offer a free half-an-hour talk about your money quiz results if you want.
Brilliant.
It.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of things out there. Just go and have a little look about, and I've got a store on my website. And any questions, always reach out to me. I'm always willing to help. I always like to help.
Absolutely.
I'm also a qualified cognitive hypnotherapist as well, so I do sort of understand the therapy side of things and know how difficult things are.
Brilliant. And that's all at www.fannysnaith.com.
Fannysnaith.com.
Perfect.
Luckily, I've got quite an easily Googleable name.
Yes, you have. You have. All right, Fanny, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and good luck and happy times to all of you gorgeous parents who are creating the future of the world.
Yes, exciting. Thank you, Fanny.
Take care.